On October 7, 2023, the world watched in horror. Hamas, the Palestinian militant group controlling Gaza, launched a surprise attack on Israel. It was a meticulously planned assault, shattering a fragile peace. The day began like any other, but by nightfall, chaos and bloodshed reigned. Hamas militants, infiltrating by land, sea, and air, targeted Israeli civilians and soldiers alike. The attacks, swift and brutal, left over 1,200 Israelis dead. Families celebrating a religious holiday were torn apart. The world looked on, stunned by the audacity and ferocity of the offensive. The images, beamed across the globe, were stark and terrifying. The attack marked a turning point in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, plunging the region into a new cycle of violence and retribution. To understand the events of October 7th, one must delve into the troubled history of Israel and Palestine. The conflict's roots run deep, entwined with claims to the same land, religious significance, and historical injustices. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration promised a national home for Jews in Palestine, already inhabited by Arabs. The 1947 UN partition plan, intended to create two states, failed to quell the unrest. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War led to Israel's creation but displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. This displacement, known as the Nakba, remains a festering wound in the Palestinian psyche. Over the decades, wars erupted, settlements expanded, and peace initiatives faltered. The Gaza Strip, a densely populated Palestinian territory, has become a focal point of the conflict. Controlled by Hamas since 2007, Gaza has endured crippling Israeli blockades, citing security concerns. These blockades, restricting movement of people and goods, have devastated Gaza's economy, trapping its inhabitants in a cycle of poverty and despair. For many Palestinians in Gaza, Hamas, despite its designation as a terrorist organization by many countries, represents resistance against Israeli occupation. The group's ideology, a blend of Islamism and Palestinian nationalism, resonates with those who feel abandoned by the international community. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not a simple binary. It is a complex web of grievances, historical traumas, and competing narratives, with Gaza bearing the brunt of this enduring tragedy. The human cost of this conflict is immeasurable. The October 7th attack left scars on the Israeli psyche, a stark reminder of the ever-present threat of violence. On the Palestinian side, the consequences have been nothing short of catastrophic. Israel, responding to the Hamas attack with overwhelming force, launched airstrikes on Gaza, targeting Hamas infrastructure. These strikes, while targeting Hamas, have resulted in a staggering number of civilian casualties. Hospitals, already overwhelmed by years of blockade, struggled to cope with the influx of wounded. Homes were reduced to rubble, burying families under the debris. The streets of Gaza, once teeming with life, became eerily silent, punctuated by the wails of mourners. Each life lost, Israeli or Palestinian, represents a personal tragedy, a stark reminder of the devastating impact of this endless cycle of violence. Two narratives, one tragedy. Perspectives on the conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is framed as a clash of narratives, each side viewing the other as the aggressor. Israel points to Hamas's rocket attacks and its charter calling for Israel's destruction. Palestinians view Israel's occupation and Gaza blockade as acts of aggression. They see themselves fighting for freedom from an oppressive system. Section 6. The long arm of the law, international law, and accountability. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not just a political or military issue. It is also a profound legal and moral question. International law, enshrined in treaties and conventions, provides a framework for conduct during armed conflict. The Geneva Conventions, for example, outline the protection of civilians and the treatment of prisoners of war. The Rome Statute, establishing the International Criminal Court, criminalizes war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. The principle of distinction, a cornerstone of international humanitarian law, requires parties to a conflict to distinguish between combatants and civilians, targeting only military objectives. Section 7. A world's responsibility, the imperative for peace. The international community bears a moral and political responsibility to work towards a just and lasting resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ignoring the plight of civilians on either side is not an option. Apathy is not a neutral stance. It is a tacit acceptance of suffering. The United Nations, with its mandate to maintain international peace and security, has a crucial role to play. The UN Security Council, despite its limitations, remains the primary forum for addressing threats to international peace. The United States, as a staunch ally of Israel, has a particular responsibility. Its veto power in the Security Council should be used judiciously, not as a shield to protect one side from accountability. Section 8. Hope amidst the ruins, a plea for a just resolution. The images of devastation and despair emanating from Israel and Palestine are a stark reminder of the human cost of this enduring conflict. Yet, even amidst the ruins, hope flickers. A just and lasting peace, while elusive, is not unattainable. It requires political will, courageous leadership, and a genuine commitment to dialogue and compromise. The two-state solution, envisioned in countless peace initiatives, remains the most viable path to peace. It requires creating a viable Palestinian state alongside Israel, with East Jerusalem as its capital. This requires addressing the core issues of the conflict: borders, security, settlements, Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. It demands an end to the occupation, the dismantling of settlements, and a just resolution to the refugee issue.